Right then, with that, everyone, I'd like to call the Falls Church City School Board meeting for April 14th, 2020 to order. And before we start with the business of the meeting, we have a statement I need to read for everyone. When the school board last met on March 31st for our electronic meeting, we were convened as an emergency meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act to address the state of emergency created by the COVID-19 pandemic. On April 6th, the City Council adopted Emergency Ordinance TO 20-12, and this emergency ordinance allows for the school board to meet electronically in order to address continuity of operations associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Our electronic meetings will still be open to the public. There will be an opportunity for the public to submit public comments to be read at the meeting, and the address for that is to send them to Marty Goodell, School Board Clerk, goodellm@fccps.org. And the agendas, comments to be read at the meeting, all the meeting notices will be posted on the FCCPS website, and the agendas will be available in advance on board docs. Before we begin the meeting tonight, I wanted to thank the City Council, City Manager, and City Attorney for passing this emergency ordinance that will allow us to move forward with the important work of running the schools during this unprecedented crisis. And we're grateful for our good relationship and strong collaboration with the City Council and City staff, and working together for the good of the little city and our students and our community. And so thank you very much for all the work that you, our partners, have done. So with that, Ms. Goodell, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Dimick. Here. Ms. Downs. Ms. Downs. Oh, you're muted. You're here. Okay. Ms. Linton.
Here.
Mr. Reitinger.
Here.
Ms. Russell.
Here.
And Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a flag courtesy of our clerk, so if everyone would please rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Ms. Goodell, do we have any public comments to be read into the record tonight?
No public comments tonight.
Okay. We'll just say it again for the record into the video and for everyone at home that for future meetings, if you do have written comments you want to make available, please send those to our school board clerk, Marty Goodell, GADELLM @fccps.org. So with that, at this point, we're going to go ahead and begin our business, and
we need to adopt the agenda.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. That was, thank you for the reminder. Can I have a motion regarding the agenda, please?
I move that the board adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. Ms. Russell, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Dimick. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Do I need to do roll call?
Actually, we do need to do, don't we, as an electronic meeting? Thank you. So please call the roll, Ms.
Sure. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Dimick?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Linton?
Yep.
Mr. Reitinger?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
And Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the reminder, Ms. Goodell. Again, no public comments, so we'll move forward now into our business and action item 3.01. And Dr. Noon will be giving us an update on COVID-19 response.
Well, good evening, everybody. Chair Anderson, Vice Chair Russell, and board, really great to see all of you tonight. And thank you again for being flexible in the way that we're meeting. Obviously, I'd like to echo the chair's thanks to our city council and our city manager and city attorney working closely with our local council on being able to provide for this type of meeting. I have an update for you this evening that's somewhat organized in the same fashion as the last meeting that we had, sort of thinking about it in three buckets. The first is the instructional bucket, the second is the community bucket, and the last is thinking about operations. Things have sort of in many ways begun to calm down a little bit, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And I'm thankful for that, as we now are sort of settling into, if you will, sort of the pandemic lifestyle, if you will. We continue to have a very close relationship and working relationship with the Fairfax County Health Department, who again is our health department authority in our region. The last meeting we had was on Friday of last week. And to be perfectly honest, the news wasn't really great, what was reported to us. So I want to just share that as context as I give some of this update tonight. What we're seeing, or what they're seeing in some of the data, is that in the Fairfax County Health District, we're beginning to sort of climb the curve, if you will, and heading towards some sort of peak. And they are anticipating that the peak would occur in this general vicinity, according to the Fairfax County Health District, within the next 2 to 4 weeks. So long as we continue maintaining our social distancing, continuing to do our good hand washing, wearing masks now out in public if you have to go grocery shopping and the like. So I share that just because I think it's important that we all know sort of what the potential near term is going to look like for us. And so knowing that we've got at least 2 to 4 weeks before we hit the peak of the curve, it means that we then have several weeks after that as we head down the curve before we can even begin to think of resuming any normalcy. And knowing that it's, mid-April, that puts us into sort of a mid-June, late June timeframe. And so there are some decisions that'll have to be made between now and the July 4th weekend for sure, because we are still anticipating holding a face-to-face summer program starting in July, but we'll be watching very closely what the news says and what our health department and health district shares with us with respect to moving ahead. So the big news in the instructional bucket, if you will, is thanks to William Bates and his team, our great principals and our awesome teachers. We were able to start new instruction today. And from all accounts that I've heard, for the most part, it went pretty smoothly. People were logged in. I got some data today of some logins. We have really, really high attendance, over 90% at both the high school and at the middle school. The attendance is a little lower at the elementary schools, and we're trying to dig into that to figure out why that is. It could be it was just the first day, or some other things have been happening in the lives of our elementary kids, but really great attendance for the first day. We spoke with a number of teachers who were very excited about being able to dig into some new instruction and new content and work through that as well, and are excited. So I mentioned in the very beginning of my comments that I think we're moving to a new place, and I shared an article with a number of people recently that came out of a blog post, and essentially it was lessons from Hong Kong International School that experienced the pandemic several months prior to us experiencing the pandemic. And there were a couple of things in there that I think really resonated with me that I think are meaningful to the conversations we've been having in our division. But perhaps the most meaningful was, where are we in the grand scheme of this pandemic as a school division? And they nicely, as they were thinking about their lessons learned, put it into 3 main sort of points of time. One was the triage phase, or the crisis phase. The second was the transitional phase. And the third is the post-pandemic phase. And I think that was a nice way to think about it, because in many ways we have been, I think, in the triage phase since really the end of February, thinking about what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? How do we get our ducks in a row so that when we do need to stand something up, we can do that pretty quickly. And even as prepared as we were for this to happen, we still were continually monitoring information, making modifications, adapting, and moving forward in sort of crisis mode. And so now that spring break has come and gone, I think that there's a calming of the waters, if you will, as we move out of this crisis and triage phase and really into a transition phase. And I think about the transition phase being between now and the end of the school year, and until the pandemic is sort of past us and we can get to that post-pandemic phase. And I think as kids do leave the school year this year, it does give us a chance then to sort of take a step back and think about what is life going to be like in the fall and in the spring of next year as we think about it from the post-pandemic experience. So I share that just to say that we're sort of moving into transition. So the updates are going to be, my hope is that the updates that we share with you and that we share with the community are things are going well, and we're not building new all the time, and we're not saying, okay, this is how we're going to deal with this, or this is how we're going to deal with this, but instead we've built some of those systems and can kind of move forward. With that said, there are a couple of things that I do want to touch on in the instructional bucket to make sure that you're aware of. We have a couple of opportunities, or have had a couple of opportunities for William Bates to meet with Matt Hills to begin thinking about what graduation is going to look like. They've met with some students. I think Niharika, you may have been part of one or two of those conversations as well. Those conversations are going on, and as there is more clarity around what graduation is going to look like, we are excited to share that with you and with the community. The caps and gowns are in. So the good news is that we have caps and gowns in the house that we can be prepared to pass out when the time is right. We are waiting on the diplomas and are excited to get those and be able to sign those. Mr. Anderson, you can be prepared to have your hand cramp writing going with your signature later on in the spring. But as soon as we have some more clarity around what graduation is going to look like, I will share that with you as quickly as we can. The feedback by and large on the information that we shared prior to spring break regarding how we were going to handle grading going forward has been very well received from everybody I've spoken to. There are a couple of things I want to share with you in case you do get questions. The first is that there's been some questions about whether or not students can go back and improve on their third quarter grades. And the answer to that question is absolutely yes. In all circumstances, regardless of whether there was 1 grade, 5 grades, 10 grades, or 20 grades, students will have an opportunity to either turn in what they were missing, or if they've turned something in and are dissatisfied with the score that they got, they can go back and continue to work on that until they get to a place where they feel really good about their grade and feel like they've been able to show their teachers what they know. The second question that has come up that you may have gotten some questions about is the 2 high school courses that were standards-based grading courses that shifted from SBG at the semester to traditional grading. And the question that's come up is, can the first semester grade be improved upon? And the answer to that question is also yes. We are working very closely with those teachers. They will be sending out information later this week, likely Friday, through Matt Hills and others that will indicate that students will have an opportunity to go back and show mastery on work that they did during that first semester to improve their grade. And that is I think one of the nice things about standards-based grading is that students can go back, redo, and move forward. So that in conjunction with their third quarter grade that they'll still be able to improve upon in all those classes, including those 2 SBG courses, will then ultimately result in their Q3 grade and then finally their S2 grade. So hopefully that helps put some people at ease. As I said in our last meeting, the one thing that we didn't want to do was put in place any policy with respect to grading and reporting that would at all hurt kids. The only thing we wanted to do was give kids an opportunity to improve. And I think that this has sort of threaded that needle to make sure that that happens. So the other things that I have to share with respect to the instructional bucket is that there are a few number of students and families who right now are being transferred with the State Department out of Falls Church. And I think part of that is that they're being transferred because the State Department knows that school is sort of ended in some areas. So as a consequence of that, we have some students who are looking to pick up their materials and their supplies and some of their instructional equipment and then turn stuff back into us. The one thing I want to say is in those rare circumstances where we have students that are actually moving out of the area, we want to encourage those parents to and families to contact the principals or assistant principals to make appointments to come